The orientation hall buzzed with nervous energy as students from across the galaxy gathered for their first official meeting. The massive room had been designed to accommodate every known species, with different atmospheric zones, gravity settings, and environmental controls for each group. Jake, Lisa, and Ryan sat in the section marked Human Compatible Environment and watched their fellow students with fascination. The Vorthak students looked like living gemstones, their crystalline bodies catching and reflecting light in beautiful patterns. The Delphini moved in specialized mobility tanks filled with their methane water-breathing mixture. The Etherian students floated in containment suits, their gaseous forms shifting colors to communicate with each other. "Welcome, students, to Kepler Station," announced Instructor Veltar, a six-limbed arachnoid whose voice carried clearly through the universal translation system. "This orientation will cover essential safety protocols that have kept our student body safe for over 100 years. The instructor's multiple eyes focused on different sections of the room as she spoke. When her gaze fell on the human section, she paused slightly and consulted her notes. "This year, we welcome our first human students. As you all know from your preparatory materials, humans require special consideration due to their fragile physiology and low environmental tolerance." Lisa raised her hand. "Excuse me, but who told you we were fragile?" Instructor Veltar's antennae twitched. "Your own medical data indicates that humans can only survive within very narrow environmental parameters. Temperature variations of more than a few degrees, changes in atmospheric pressure, or exposure to common galactic atmospheric mixtures can be fatal to your species." "That's not exactly right," Ryan said politely. "Humans are actually pretty adaptable. We live in all kinds of environments on our planet." "Impossible!" clicked Zixtal, a Vorthak student whose crystalline form flashed orange with skepticism. "Our briefing materials showed that Earth has only one type of environment suitable for life." Jake grinned. "Earth has deserts where the temperature hits 50 degrees Celsius, frozen regions where it drops to -40, mountains where the air is so thin you can barely breathe, and we live in all of them." The alien students exchanged worried glances. Through their translators, concerned chittering, clicking, and harmonic vibrations filled the air. "Surely you mean with advanced life support systems?" Instructor Veltar said carefully. "Nope," Lisa replied. "Just regular clothes, maybe some warm jackets for the cold places. People have been living in extreme environments for thousands of years, long before we had any advanced technology." Instructor Veltar made rapid notes and decided to move on to the safety demonstration. "Very well. Let us review the standard safety protocols that all students must follow." The first demonstration involved atmospheric safety. A sealed chamber was filled with what the instructor described as mildly toxic atmosphere, a mixture that contained 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, and trace amounts of other gases. "This mixture is considered moderately dangerous," Instructor Veltar explained. "Exposure without proper breathing apparatus can cause cellular damage in most species within minutes." The alien students all checked their breathing equipment and environmental suits. Several Delphini students moved further back in their mobility tanks. Jake raised his hand again. "That's just regular Earth air. We breathe that all the time." "Impossible," gasped Quenara, a Delphini student whose translator conveyed her shock. "That concentration of oxygen would burn through our cellular structures, and nitrogen is a poison gas." "Not for us," Ryan explained. "That's exactly what we evolved to breathe. Our cells actually need that much oxygen to function properly." Instructor Veltar's 6 limbs moved nervously as she consulted her tablet. This was not going according to the planned curriculum. The second safety demonstration involved gravity tolerance. The instructor activated a small gravity field generator that created a dangerous gravitational environment of 1.2 times standard galactic gravity. This represents the upper limit of safe gravitational exposure, she announced. Prolonged exposure to such intense gravitational forces can cause structural damage to most skeletal systems. The alien students watched nervously as specialized gravity suits were distributed. The equipment looked heavy and complicated, designed to help support body structures under increased gravitational stress. "Do we need those?" Lisa asked, pointing at the suits. "Of course," Instructor Veltar replied. "Without proper support, the gravitational forces could crush your delicate bone structure." Jake stood up and walked over to the gravity field generator. He stepped into the field without any protective equipment and started walking around normally. "This feels like home," he said. "Actually, it's a little lighter than what we're used to." The room fell silent. Every alien student stared in disbelief, as Jake not only survived the crushing gravity, but seemed completely comfortable in it. "How is that possible?" whispered Morden, an Etherian student whose gaseous form swirled anxiously in his containment suit. "Earth's gravity is about 1.6 times your standard," Ryan explained. "We've been living in higher gravity our whole lives. This actually feels pretty easy." The third demonstration covered temperature tolerance. Instructor Veltar activated a climate control system that created what she described as extreme temperature variation, a range from 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. These temperature swings represent the absolute maximum that most life forms can tolerate, she explained. Exposure to such extremes without proper thermal regulation can be fatal. The alien students activated heating and cooling units built into their environmental suits. Several species had backup temperature regulation systems that kicked in automatically. Lisa checked the temperature readings and shrugged. "This is room temperature for us. We don't need any special equipment for this." "Surely you jest," Zixtal flashed, his crystalline form showing deep blue patterns of confusion. "Such temperature variations would cause our molecular structures to become unstable. Humans regularly experience temperature swings of 40 or 50 degrees in a single day," Jake added. "Some places on Earth see temperature ranges of 80 degrees or more between summer and winter." "Impossible," Instructor Veltar said firmly. "No biological life form could survive such extreme conditions." "Earth life is different," Lisa explained patiently. "We evolved on a planet that's basically trying to kill everything on it all the time. Extreme weather, dangerous radiation, toxic plants, predatory animals, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, droughts, you name it, Earth's got it." "Then how does anything survive there?" asked Quinara. "By being tough," Ryan said simply. "Evolution made us pretty hard to kill." The orientation hall buzzed with confused and worried conversations among the alien students. Their translators were working overtime as different species discussed what they had just witnessed. Instructor Veltar realized she needed to completely rethink her approach to the human students. Either they were impossibly reckless, or the briefing materials about human fragility were completely wrong. "Perhaps we should move on to the practical laboratory safety protocols," she said, hoping for better results. "Sounds good," Jake said cheerfully. "What kind of dangerous stuff are we working with?" "Standard laboratory materials," Instructor Veltar replied. "Diluted acids, mild electrical currents, low-level radiation sources, and pressurized containers." The three humans exchanged glances and grinned. "This should be fun," Lisa said. Instructor Veltar was beginning to suspect that humans had a very different definition of fun than the rest of the galaxy. As the orientation ended and students began filing out to their dormitories, alien students clustered together in worried groups, discussing the impossible humans who seemed to treat deadly hazards as minor inconveniences. Meanwhile, Jake, Lisa, and Ryan walked casually through the corridors, completely unaware that they had just turned the entire academic community's understanding of biological limitations upside down. "I like it here," Ryan said. "Everyone seems really concerned about safety. It's kind of sweet." "Yeah," agreed Lisa. "Though I wonder what they'd think if they knew about extreme sports." "Let's not mention those just yet," Jake laughed. "I think we've shocked them enough for one day. They had no idea that the real shocks were still to come." The massive space station hung in the darkness between stars like a glowing jewel. Kepler Station had been the pride of the Galactic Academic Consortium for over a century. Students from 12 different worlds came here to learn and share knowledge. The station's biodomes recreated perfect environments for each species, while the academic halls buzzed with the sounds of universal translators working overtime. In the administrative offices, Director Thanix reviewed the latest applications with growing concern. The four-armed Zentorian adjusted his reading glasses and stared at the documents spread across his desk. For the first time in the station's history, they had received an application from a species that made him nervous. Humans. The species had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Their planet, called Earth, sat in what most civilized species considered a death trap of a solar system, too close to an unstable star, bombarded with radiation, plagued by extreme weather, and filled with toxic gases that would kill most life forms within minutes. "Sir?" His assistant, a crystalline being named Velnix, chimed softly. "The human delegation has arrived at Docking Bay 7. Director Thanix sighed and picked up the thick safety manual that had been prepared for the human students. The document was 3 times longer than any other species' requirements. Humans, according to their own medical data, were fragile creatures who needed very specific atmospheric conditions, temperature controls, and protection from even mild environmental hazards. "Have all safety protocols been reviewed?" he asked. "Yes, sir. We've installed additional atmospheric processors in the human quarters. The temperature has been set to their narrow comfort range. All potentially toxic materials have been moved to secure storage. The gravity in their section has been reduced to match their home world's weak gravitational pull." The director nodded. Earth's gravity was considered dangerously low by galactic standards. Most species evolved on worlds with at least twice that gravitational force. The humans would probably need assistance walking until they adjusted to even the station's standard gravity. Meanwhile, in Docking Bay 7, 3 humans stepped off their transport ship with wide grins on their faces. Jake Martinez carried a simple duffel bag and looked around with the casual interest of someone visiting a new shopping mall. Lisa Coleman had her nose buried in a tablet, reading about the different species she would meet. Ryan Brooks stretched his arms and yawned, looking like he had just woken up from a comfortable nap. "This is incredible," Lisa said, finally looking up from her reading. "Did you know the Vorthax students communicate through light patterns in their crystalline bodies, and the Delphini breathe a methane water mixture?" "Cool," Jake replied, adjusting his backpack. "Think they have decent food here?" Ryan pointed to a sign written in dozens of different languages and symbols. Looks like orientation starts in an hour. We should probably find our rooms first. The three humans walked through the station's corridors with easy confidence. Other students they passed stared openly. Most had never seen humans before, though they had all been briefed on the new species' fragile nature. Several arachnoid students clicked worriedly among themselves, discussing whether the humans should be walking around without protective gear. A tall, insect-like being approached them. This was Guide Mortex, assigned to help new arrivals. He moved carefully, as if approaching dangerous animals. "Welcome, human students," he said through his translator. "I am here to escort you to your specially prepared living quarters. Please follow me closely and inform me immediately if you experience any discomfort. The atmospheric mixture here may be too rich for your systems." The three humans exchanged glances. The air felt perfectly normal to them, maybe even a bit thin, compared to what they were used to. "Thanks," Jake said, "but we feel fine. This air is actually pretty clean." Guide Mortex's antennae twitched nervously. "Clean? The atmospheric processors are working at maximum efficiency to filter out impurities that might harm your delicate respiratory systems." Lisa tilted her head. "Delicate?" "Our respiratory systems are designed to filter out dust, pollen, and all kinds of particles. We'll be okay." As they walked, Ryan noticed other students moving carefully through the corridors. Many wore what looked like environmental suits or breathing apparatus. A group of Etherean students floated by in containment suits, their gaseous forms swirling inside protective barriers. "Are those students okay?" Ryan asked. "They look like they're in medical equipment." "Those are standard safety measures," Guide Mortex explained. "Each species requires specific environmental controls to survive outside their native quarters. The Etherians cannot maintain their molecular cohesion in standard atmosphere. The Vorthak need precise humidity levels, or their crystalline structures become brittle. The Delphini require breathing assistance when not in their aquatic sections." "And humans?" Lisa asked. Guide Mortex consulted his tablet. "According to your species' medical data, you require constant temperature regulation, low radiation environments, and atmospheric pressure within a very narrow range. Any deviation could cause serious harm." Jake laughed. "Seriously? We're pretty tough. Back home, people go camping in all kinds of weather. My uncle lives in Alaska where it gets 40 below zero in winter." "Impossible," Guide Mortex said flatly. "No known species can survive in such extreme temperatures without life support systems." The humans' quarters turned out to be a carefully controlled environment with multiple safety features. The walls displayed constant readouts of atmospheric conditions, temperature, and radiation levels. Emergency breathing apparatus hung in clearly marked cases every few feet. "This looks like a hospital room," Ryan observed. "We wanted to ensure your safety," Guide Mortex explained. "Your species evolved on a world with dangerously low atmospheric pressure and minimal natural protection from cosmic radiation. These quarters will keep you safe while you adjust to station life." Lisa checked the environmental readings and frowned. "This pressure is actually lower than what we're used to, and the radiation levels are basically zero. On Earth, we get more radiation just from walking outside on a sunny day." Guide Mortex's translator made confused beeping sounds as it tried to process this information. "That cannot be correct. Exposure to such radiation levels would be fatal to most life forms. Most life forms didn't evolve under a giant nuclear reactor in the sky," Jake said cheerfully. "Our sun pumps out way more radiation than what you're reading here." The guide made rapid notes on his tablet. This conversation was not going according to the briefing materials he had studied. "Perhaps you should rest before orientation," he suggested. "The medical staff wants to run some baseline health checks to ensure the station environment is not harming you." "Sure," Ryan said. "But we feel great. Actually, this low gravity is kind of fun. I feel like I could jump over that chair." Guide Mortex quickly stepped between Ryan and the furniture. "Please do not attempt any sudden movements. The medical staff needs to clear you for physical activity first." After Guide Mortex left, the three humans looked around their overly protective quarters and started laughing. "They think we're made of glass," Jake said. "Wait until they find out what we consider normal food," Lisa added, grinning. "This is going to be an interesting semester," Ryan concluded. None of them realized just how interesting it was about to become. The chemistry laboratory was a marvel of galactic safety engineering. Multiple atmospheric filtration systems hummed quietly in the background, while containment fields protected students from any potential chemical hazards. Emergency evacuation. Routes were clearly marked in 17 different languages and symbol systems. Lisa stood at her assigned workstation, watching with amusement as her alien classmates prepared for what Instructor Veltar had described as moderately hazardous chemical work. The Vorthax students had activated crystalline protective barriers around their bodies. The Delphini students had sealed their mobility tanks and switched to internal filtration systems. The Etherian students had reinforced their containment suits with additional shielding. "Today we will be working with diluted hydrochloric acid," Instructor Veltar announced, her voice carrying a tone of serious concern. "This is a corrosive substance that can cause severe damage to most biological tissues. Please ensure all safety protocols are followed exactly." The instructor demonstrated the proper procedure for handling the acid containers. Multiple layers of protective equipment were required. Environmental suits, reinforced gloves, facial protection, and emergency breathing apparatus. A detailed checklist had to be completed before any student could touch the containers. "The concentration of today's acid solution is 0.5 molar, Instructor Veltar continued. "While this is considered relatively safe compared to pure acid, it still poses significant danger to most species. Any contact with biological tissue must be reported immediately to emergency medical staff." Lisa raised her hand. "What percentage is that?" Instructor Veltar consulted her notes. "Approximately 1.8% hydrochloric acid." "That's it?" Lisa asked. "We use stronger stuff than that to clean bathroom tiles at home." The alien students' translators buzzed with confused static as they tried to process this statement. "Surely you mean with robotic cleaning systems," Zixtal flashed, his crystalline form showing yellow patterns of concern. "No, people clean with it directly," Lisa explained. "You can buy toilet bowl cleaner that's like 10% hydrochloric acid at any grocery store. People use it with just rubber gloves." Quinara's translator produced a sound like a frightened whale. "Your species uses concentrated acid for cleaning living spaces?" "Sure," Lisa shrugged. "It's great for removing mineral deposits. My mom keeps a bottle under the kitchen sink." Instructor Veltar made rapid notes while the alien students chatted nervously among themselves. The idea of storing corrosive chemicals in living areas seemed completely insane to them. "Perhaps human cleaning procedures are different than reported," Instructor Veltar said diplomatically. "Please begin your experiments and remember to follow all safety protocols exactly." The laboratory exercise involved mixing the diluted acid with various base solutions to observe neutralization reactions. For most species, this required careful remote manipulation tools and multiple safety barriers. Lisa simply put on basic safety glasses and nitrile gloves, the same kind she used for washing dishes with strong detergent at home. When she picked up the acid container directly, several alien students made sounds of alarm. "Human student," Instructor Veltar called urgently. "You must activate additional protective barriers before handling corrosive materials." "I'm fine," Lisa replied, carefully measuring the acid into a beaker. "This is way less dangerous than the chemistry labs I used in high school." "High school?" Mordoon's gaseous form swirled frantically in his containment suit. "Your species exposes adolescents to corrosive chemicals?" "How else would we learn chemistry?" Lisa asked reasonably. "Kids start doing basic experiments when they're like 12 or 13. The alien students exchanged horrified looks. The idea of exposing developing juveniles to dangerous chemicals seemed like child abuse to them. While Lisa worked comfortably with the acid solutions, her alien classmates struggled with their cumbersome safety equipment. The thick protective gloves made precise measurements difficult, and the full-face breathing apparatus limited their vision. That's when disaster struck. Zixtal, the Vortax student, was having trouble with his remote manipulation tools. The crystalline being's natural method of handling objects involved precisely controlled vibrations, but the safety equipment interfered with his ability to vibrate at the correct frequencies. As he attempted to transfer acid from one container to another, his manipulator arm jerked unexpectedly. The container fell, shattering on the laboratory floor and spreading diluted hydrochloric acid across a wide area. Immediately, emergency alarms began blaring throughout the laboratory. Bright red warning lights flashed, and automated voice systems announced, "Chemical spill. Evacuate immediately," in dozens of languages. The alien students panicked. Vorthak students' crystalline forms flashed bright orange with fear. Delphini students sealed their tanks completely and activated emergency life support. Etherian students compressed their gaseous forms and prepared for emergency teleportation. "To safety containers! Everyone out!" Instructor Veltar shouted, her 6 limbs gesturing toward evacuation routes. "Emergency containment protocols are now in effect." The alien students rushed toward the exits in as orderly a fashion as they could manage while terrified. Emergency breathing apparatus activated automatically. Containment barriers sealed different sections of the laboratory to prevent the spread of dangerous fumes. Lisa, however, simply held her breath and walked calmly toward the spill. "Student Lisa, evacuate immediately," Instructor Veltar commanded, from the doorway. But Lisa was already kneeling next to the spill, pulling a small container from her lab kit. She sprinkled white powder around the edges of the acid puddle, which immediately began fizzing and neutralizing the acid. "Baking soda," she explained to the room full of watching alien students. "Sodium bicarbonate. It neutralizes acid safely." Within 30 seconds, the dangerous chemical spill had been reduced to a harmless, salty puddle. Lisa stood up, brushed off her knees, and walked over to activate the laboratory's ventilation system to clear any remaining fumes. The alarm stopped. The emergency lights switched off. The crisis was over. Instructor Veltar stared in shock. "How did you know to do that?" "Basic chemistry," Lisa replied. "Acid plus base equals salt plus water. We learned that in middle school." "But the toxic fumes," Quinara protested. "How did you survive exposure to the acid vapors?" I held my breath. Lisa said simply, "It was only for like 20 seconds. The concentration wasn't that high anyway." "Impossible," Zixtal flashed, his crystalline form still, showing patterns of disbelief. Direct exposure to acid vapors would cause immediate respiratory damage. Not really, Lisa explained. Humans are exposed to way worse stuff all the time. Car exhaust, industrial pollution, cleaning product fumes. We deal with chemical exposure every day. Morden's gaseous form was swirling in agitation. Your species regularly breathes toxic substances? Well, we try not to, Lisa laughed. But yeah, we're pretty good at handling short-term exposure to chemicals that would probably kill most other species. Instructor Veltar was rapidly rewriting her notes on human physiology. Either this student was incredibly reckless, or humans were far more chemically resistant than anyone had realized. How do you know so much about acid neutralization? She asked. My dad works in a pool maintenance company, Lisa explained. I've been helping him balance pool chemicals since I was 10. You have to know how to handle muriatic acid, chlorine, sodium hydroxide, all kinds of stuff. Your father allows a juvenile to handle industrial chemicals? Instructor Veltar's voice rose an octave. Sure, it's not that dangerous if you know what you're doing. Besides, someone has to learn the family business. The alien students huddled together, trying to process what they had just witnessed. A human juvenile had been routinely exposed to substances that would require emergency medical treatment for most galactic species. Perhaps, Instructor Veltar said carefully, we should adjust the laboratory safety protocols for human students. That would be great, Lisa said cheerfully. Can we work with some stronger acids tomorrow? This diluted stuff is kind of boring. The collective gasp from the alien students was audible even through their translators. Instructor Veltar realized she needed to have a very serious conversation with the director about human safety requirements. Either the briefing materials were completely wrong, or humans were the most dangerously resilient species the galaxy had ever encountered. As the class ended and students filed out, Lisa cleaned up her workstation with the same casual efficiency she used for washing dishes at home. "See you tomorrow," she called to her alien classmates, who were still discussing the incident in worried tones. "If there is a tomorrow," Zixtal flashed grimly. "After the humans finish destroying the laboratory." Lisa just laughed and headed to her next class, completely unaware that she had just redefined the entire station's understanding of chemical safety. The Advanced Physics Laboratory was the crown jewel of Kepler Station's academic facilities. Massive particle accelerators hummed behind reinforced barriers, while electromagnetic field generators created precisely controlled experimental environments. The radiation shielding alone had cost more than most planetary defense systems. Ryan Brooks stood with his fellow students as Professor Nexral, a distinguished Zentaurian physicist, prepared them for their first experiment with what he called dangerous radiation exposure. Today, we will be observing the effects of controlled radiation on various material samples, Professor Nexral announced, his four arms gesturing toward the heavily shielded experimental chamber. The radiation levels we will be working with are considered extremely hazardous and require the utmost caution. The alien students had already begun putting on their protective equipment. The Vorthak students activated internal energy dampening, fields that made their crystalline bodies appear dimmer. The Delphini students switched their mobility tanks to lead-lined shielding mode. The Etherian students compressed their gaseous forms into specially reinforced containment units. The radiation source produces approximately 2 millirems per hour, Professor Nexral continued. This represents the absolute maximum safe exposure level for brief periods. Extended exposure could cause cellular damage or even death. Ryan raised his hand. Did you say 2 millirems per hour? Correct, Professor Nexral replied. I know this seems extremely dangerous, but with proper shielding, we can safely observe the experiments from a distance. That's not dangerous at all, Ryan said, looking confused. People get more radiation than that just from flying in airplanes. The alien students' translators buzzed with confused static as they tried to process this statement. Flying? Quenara asked through her translator. You mean spacecraft? No, regular aircraft, Ryan explained. Commercial airliners. At cruising altitude, you get about 6 millirems per hour from cosmic radiation. Flight crews who work international routes get thousands of millirems per year. Zixtal's crystalline form flashed deep red with alarm. Your species regularly exposes individuals to lethal radiation levels? It's not lethal, Ryan laughed. People fly all the time. Business travelers, vacation trips, airline pilots, millions of people every day. Professor Nexral consulted his tablet frantically. According to every medical database he had access to, the radiation levels Ryan was describing would be fatal to most known life forms within days. Perhaps there is a translation error, he suggested hopefully. Nope, Ryan replied. 2 millirems per hour is basically background radiation in a lot of places on Earth. Some natural areas have way higher levels. There are beaches in Brazil where people go sunbathing that have 50 millirems per hour from natural radioactive sand. Sunbathing? Morden's gaseous form swirled in horrified patterns. Your species voluntarily exposes itself to radiation for recreational purposes? Well, solar radiation mostly, Ryan said, though some people do visit natural hot springs that are pretty radioactive. It's supposed to be good for you. The alien students exchanged looks of pure terror. The idea of deliberately seeking out radiation exposure for health benefits sounded like the behavior of a death cult. Surely these individuals require extensive medical treatment afterward, Professor Nexral said. Not really, Ryan shrugged. Most people just get a nice tan, though you have to be careful not to overdo it or you'll get sunburned. Burned? Zixtal flashed. The radiation burns your tissue? Sometimes if you stay out too long without protection, Ryan admitted, but it's just surface damage. It heals up in a few days. Professor Nexral was rapidly losing confidence in his experimental setup. If humans regularly exposed themselves to radiation levels hundreds of times higher than his extremely dangerous experiment, then his carefully controlled environment might seem laughably tame to them. Let us proceed with the experiment, he said nervously. Please remember that even brief exposure to these radiation levels requires protective equipment. He activated the experimental chamber and began distributing radiation detection badges to the students. The alien students also activated personal force fields, backup shielding systems, and emergency medical monitors. Ryan looked at the heavy lead-lined vest he was supposed to wear and the full-face radiation mask. Do I really need all this for 2 millirems? Absolutely, Professor Nexral insisted. Even minimal exposure could be harmful. My grandmother gets radiation therapy for her arthritis. That's about 50,000 millirems per session, Ryan said casually as he put on the safety equipment. Her doctor says it helps with the inflammation. The entire class stopped what they were doing and stared at him. 50,000 millirems? Professor Nexral repeated weakly. Yeah, medical radiation is pretty intense, Ryan continued. Cancer patients get millions of millirems during treatment. I know a guy who had thyroid cancer and they gave him radioactive iodine. He was so radioactive afterward that he had to stay isolated for a week so he wouldn't accidentally irradiate other people. And he survived this treatment? Quenara asked, in amazement. "Oh, sure, he's fine now," Ryan said. "Actually, he's probably still slightly radioactive, but not enough to matter." Morden's containment suit was making alarmed beeping sounds. "Your medical practitioners deliberately irradiate patients with lethal doses of radiation?" "It's not lethal if you do it right," Ryan explained. "Human bodies are pretty good at repairing radiation damage, especially if it's targeted carefully. Medical radiation kills cancer cells faster than it kills healthy cells." Professor Nexerall realized he needed to completely reconsider his experimental parameters. If humans routinely survived radiation exposure, that would be instantly fatal to any other known species. Then his dangerous experiment was probably like asking them to be afraid of a gentle breeze. "Perhaps we should increase the radiation level for better experimental results," he suggested. "That would be great," Ryan said enthusiastically. "At this level, we're not going to see any interesting effects on the test materials." "Increase the radiation?" Zixtal flashed in patterns of pure panic. "Are you trying to kill us all?" "The human is right," Professor Nexerall admitted reluctantly. "For meaningful data collection, we need higher energy levels. However, this would require all non-human students to observe from the shielded control room." "That seems unfair," Ryan said. "Can't everyone just wear more protective equipment?" "There is no protective equipment that could keep other species safe at the radiation levels you are suggesting," Professor Nexerall explained. "Really?" Ryan looked surprised. "What about just getting farther away?" "Distance helps. But even at maximum range, the radiation levels you consider safe would be immediately fatal to most galactic species." Ryan processed this information slowly. "So, when you guys said I was from a fragile species that needed protection, we may have been operating under some misconceptions," Professor Nexerall admitted. As the experiment proceeded, Ryan worked comfortably in radiation levels that required the other students to observe from behind 3 feet of lead shielding. He took readings directly from the radiation source, handled radioactive samples with basic protective gloves, and showed no signs of distress whatsoever. "This is really interesting," he called to his classmates through the intercom system. "The decay patterns are different than what we predicted. You should see this." "We'll take your word for it," Quenara replied from the safety of the control room. "Please be careful not to die from radiation poisoning." "At this level," Ryan laughed, "I'd have to stay in here for about 50 years to get a dangerous dose." When the experiment ended, Professor Nexerall ran medical scans on Ryan to check for radiation damage. The results showed exactly 0 cellular damage or contamination. "Fascinating," he murmured, studying the readings. "Your cellular structure appears to have natural resistance to radiation effects." "Evolution, I guess," Ryan said. "Earth gets bombarded with cosmic radiation all the time. Plus, we have radioactive elements in our planet's crust, and our sun is basically a giant fusion reactor. Life on Earth had to develop radiation resistance, or it would have died out billions of years ago." "Remarkable," Professor Nexerall said. "In one experiment, you have survived radiation exposure that would kill most students instantly." "Want to try higher levels tomorrow?" Ryan asked hopefully. "I'd love to see what happens to the molecular structure of crystalline samples under real radiation stress." Zixtal's form flashed bright white with terror. "Real radiation stress?" "Don't worry," Ryan assured him. "I'll handle the dangerous stuff. You guys can observe from wherever you feel safe." As the class ended, the alien students clustered together, discussing what they had witnessed. A human had not only survived lethal radiation, but had suggested increasing it for better experimental results. "Are all humans this resistant to radiation?" Quenara asked. "Apparently," Mordoon replied, his gaseous form still swirling with anxiety. Their planet sounds like a radiation-blasted hellscape, and they call us fragile, Zixtal flashed ironically. Meanwhile, Ryan headed to his next class, completely unaware that he had just redefined the physics department's understanding of radiation safety. Professor Nexral sat alone in his laboratory, staring at his experimental. The variable gravity training facility was Kepler Station's most impressive achievement in educational technology. The massive chamber could simulate gravitational conditions from dozens of different worlds, allowing students to experience the physical environments they might encounter during their careers. Commander Crixven, a decorated military officer from the high-gravity world of Drakmor, served as the facility's director. Even for his species, which had evolved under gravitational forces twice the galactic standard, the facility's extreme settings were considered dangerous. "Welcome to gravitational conditioning," Commander Crixven announced to the mixed group of students. His massive muscular frame was the result of evolution under crushing gravitational forces that would flatten most species. Today, you will experience different planetary environments in controlled, safe conditions. The alien students had already begun putting on their gravity assistance suits. These sophisticated pieces of equipment used anti-gravity generators and structural support systems to help students move under increased gravitational stress. Jake Martinez looked around at his classmates with interest. The Etherian students had reinforced their containment suits with additional structural support. The Delphini had activated buoyancy controls in their mobility tanks. Even the sturdy Vorthak students had engaged protective barriers around their crystalline structures. "We will begin with normal galactic standard gravity," Commander Crixven continued, "then gradually increase to the dangerous level of 1.2 times standard. This represents the upper limit of safe exposure for most species." Jake raised his hand. "What's normal galactic standard?" "Approximately 0.6 of your homeworld's gravitational force," Commander Crixven replied, consulting his notes on human physiology. "We've reduced the facility to accommodate your species' adaptation to weak gravitational environments." "You reduced it?" Jake asked, looking confused. "Yes, to prevent immediate injury to human students. According to our data, exposure to full galactic standard gravity could crush your delicate bone structure." Jake looked around the facility and suddenly understood why he had been feeling so light and bouncy since arriving at the station. "You mean it's been set to low gravity this whole time?" "Correct. Your safety requires careful gravitational management. But I feel like I'm floating," Jake said. "This is way too light." Zixtal's crystalline form flashed orange with concern. "Too light? You desire increased gravitational stress?" "I want normal gravity," Jake explained. "Earth gravity. This low gravity is actually making me tired because my muscles aren't working hard enough." Commander Crixven consulted his tablet with growing alarm. "Earth gravity is 1.6 times galactic standard. That level would be immediately dangerous to most students. It's what I grew up with," Jake said reasonably. "Can you set it to normal Earth levels?" "Absolutely not," Commander Crixven replied firmly. "Such gravitational forces could cause permanent injury." "To who?" Jake asked. "To everyone, Commander," Crixven said, though he was beginning to sound less certain. "How about we start with your dangerous level and see how it goes?" Jake suggested. Commander Crixven looked around at the other students, who were all safely secured in their gravity assistance suits. "Very well. We will begin the exercise. Remember, 1.2 times standard represents extreme gravitational stress." He activated the gravity field generator, and the chamber's gravitational force increased to what the facility considered dangerously high levels. Immediately, the alien students felt the crushing weight. Their assistance suits activated automatically, providing structural support and anti-gravity assistance. Several students made sounds of distress as they struggled to move under the increased gravitational load. Jake stood up, stretched his arms, and started walking around normally. "This is perfect," he said, taking a few experimental steps. "It's still a bit light, but much better." The entire class stared at him in shock. Jake was not only moving freely under gravitational forces that required mechanical assistance for everyone else, but he seemed more comfortable than he had been under low gravity. "Impossible!" Quenara gasped through her translator, her mobility tank's anti-gravity systems working at maximum to keep her afloat. "How are you not being crushed?" Morden asked, his reinforced containment suit creaking under the gravitational stress. "This is still lighter than home," Jake explained. "Earth gravity is about 30% stronger than this." Commander Crixvin checked his readings twice to make sure the gravity generator was working correctly. "You're telling me that your species evolved under gravitational forces stronger than our maximum safety threshold?" "Yeah, pretty much," Jake said. He started doing jumping jacks to demonstrate his comfort level. "Want to see something cool?" Before anyone could stop him, Jake dropped to the floor and started doing push-ups. Under gravitational stress that was crushing his alien classmates, even with mechanical assistance, Jake was performing voluntary physical exercise. "Stop!" Commander Crixvin shouted. "You'll injure yourself!" "I'm fine," Jake said, continuing his push-ups. "I usually do about 50 of these every morning. This gravity makes it easier, actually." Zixtal's crystalline form was flashing rapid patterns of disbelief. "You perform voluntary physical stress under crushing gravitational forces?" "Exercise is normal for humans," Jake explained, getting back to his feet. "We need physical activity to stay healthy. Most people do some kind of exercise every day." "Under full planetary gravity?" Commander Crixvin asked weakly. "Of course. Some people exercise with additional weight to make it harder." The alien students' translators produced a cacophony of horrified sounds as they tried to process this information. "Additional weight?" Quenara asked. "You deliberately increase the physical stress of exercise?" "Sure," Jake said. "Weightlifting, resistance training, high-intensity workouts. Some people run marathons. That's 42 kilometers of continuous running." 42 kilometers, Morden repeated faintly. "Under full gravity." "Yep, and that's just for fun. Military training is way more intense." Commander Crixvin was rapidly losing confidence in his facility's safety parameters. If humans routinely performed physical exercise under gravitational forces stronger than his equipment's maximum setting, then his extreme training environment was basically a gentle walk in the park for them. "Perhaps we should increase the gravitational level for better training results," he suggested nervously. "That would be great," Jake said enthusiastically. "Can you get it up to full Earth gravity?" "That would require evacuating all non-human students," Commander Crixvin warned. "Really?" Jake looked disappointed. "Can't they just use better assistance suits?" "There are no assistance suits that could protect other species under such gravitational stress," Commander Crixvin explained. "Wow," Jake said. "I knew Earth was a high-gravity world, but I didn't realize it was that much higher." Commander Crixvin activated the facility's maximum gravitational setting, 1.5 times galactic standard. This level was considered so dangerous that it was normally only used for testing equipment durability. The alien students had to be evacuated to the observation deck, where they watched through reinforced windows as Jake moved around comfortably in gravitational forces that would have crushed them flat. "This is much better," Jake called through the intercom system. "Still not quite Earth normal, but close enough for a good workout." He proceeded to demonstrate various human exercises, running laps around the chamber, doing sit-ups, pull-ups, on the equipment framework, and even some basic gymnastics moves. "Fascinating," Commander Crixvin murmured, watching the readings from the observation deck. "He's not showing any signs of stress or fatigue." "How is this possible?" Zixtal flashed. "Our strongest mechanical assistance suits couldn't function under those gravitational forces. Human physiology is apparently adapted for much higher gravitational stress than we realized," Commander Crixvin admitted. "Their bone density, muscle strength, and cardiovascular systems must be far more robust than our medical data indicated." When the training session ended, Jake emerged from the chamber looking refreshed and energized. "Thanks," he said to Commander Crixvin. "That was the best workout I've had since I got to the station. Can we do this every day?" "If you want," Commander Crixvin replied weakly. "Though you'll have to train alone. No other species can survive those gravitational levels." "That's okay," Jake said cheerfully. "I'm used to working out by myself." As the class dispersed, the alien students clustered together discussing what they had witnessed. "The humans aren't fragile at all," Quenara observed. "They're impossibly strong." "Their entire planet must be a death world," Mordun agreed. "How else could they evolve such extreme physical capabilities? And they called us the dangerous ones," Zixtal flashed ironically. Meanwhile, Jake headed to the cafeteria, completely unaware that he had just redefined the station's understanding of physical fitness and gravitational tolerance. Commander Crixvin stood in his facility, staring at the equipment that had been designed to test the limits of galactic physiology and wondering if he needed to build new equipment just to provide adequate training for human students. Either that, or he should start asking the humans to help design training programs for everyone else. The emergency alarm system of Kepler Station was designed to handle any conceivable crisis. When the piercing wail echoed through the corridors at 800 hours, every student knew exactly what it meant: atmospheric breach drill. Safety Director Yexnara watched from the Central Command Center as hundreds of students across the station began their carefully rehearsed emergency procedures. This quarterly drill tested every aspect of the station's emergency response systems and student preparedness. "Attention all students," her voice announced through the station-wide communication system. "This is an emergency evacuation drill. Atmospheric breach has been detected in Sections 7 through 12. All students must reach designated emergency shelters within 10 minutes. Repeat, this is a drill." In Dormitory Block C, alien students immediately began following their species-specific emergency protocols. The Vorthak students activated emergency crystalline barriers and began moving in formation toward their designated shelter. The Delphini students sealed their mobility tanks and switched to emergency life support systems. The Etherian students compressed their gaseous forms into emergency transport containers. Jake, Lisa, and Ryan heard the alarm and looked at each other. "Emergency drill," Lisa said, checking her tablet for the shelter location. "We need to get to Shelter 12 Alpha." "That's on the other side of the station," Ryan observed, looking at the station map. 10 minutes should be plenty of time," Jake said, standing up from his desk where he had been working on homework. They walked out of their dormitory and into corridors filled with organized chaos. Alien students moved in careful formation, following established safety protocols that required group movement, regular head counts, and systematic progress toward their shelters. "Look at how organized everyone is," Lisa said admiringly, as they watched a group of Vorthak students moving in perfect synchronization, their crystalline forms creating beautiful light patterns as they communicated. "Yeah, but they're moving really slowly," Jake observed. The alien students were proceeding at what seemed like a cautious walking pace, stopping frequently to check their breathing equipment and confirm group cohesion. "We should probably catch up to them," Ryan said. 3 humans started walking faster to close the distance to the nearest group of alien students. Within a few steps, they had not only caught up, but were starting to pass the carefully moving formation. "Hey!" Jake called to Zixtal, who was part of the Vorthak group. "Want to walk together?" Zixtal's crystalline form flashed orange with alarm. "You should not be moving so rapidly during emergency evacuation. Hasty movement leads to accidents and injuries." "We're just walking normally," Lisa replied. "That is not normal walking speed," Quenara protested from her mobility tank, which was moving at what seemed like a snail's pace to the humans. "You are proceeding at dangerous velocity." "Dangerous?" Ryan looked confused. "We're barely walking fast enough to maintain momentum." The alien students watched in growing alarm as the humans continued moving at what they considered reckless speed. Emergency evacuations required careful, measured progress to ensure no one was left behind and no accidents occurred. But the humans seemed to be treating the emergency drill like a casual stroll through a shopping mall. "Perhaps we should stay with the group," Lisa suggested, slowing down to match the aliens' pace. After 30 seconds of moving at the aliens' evacuation speed, Jake was getting frustrated. "At this rate, we'll never make it to the shelter in 10 minutes. "The time limit is theoretical," Mordun explained, his gaseous form swirling anxiously in his emergency container. "No group has ever actually reached their shelter in the minimum time. It is designed to test our ability to work together under pressure, not to actually complete evacuation in 10 minutes. "What's the fastest time anyone has ever made it?" Ryan asked. 14 minutes and 37 seconds. Zixtal flashed proudly. "Set by a Zentarian group last semester." The 3 humans looked at each other and came to a silent understanding. "We'll see you at the shelter," Jake said diplomatically. Before the alien students could protest, the humans took off running. From the Central Command Center, Safety Director Yexnara watched her monitoring displays with growing confusion. 3 red dots representing the human students were moving across the station map at impossible speed. "Technical malfunction in tracking system?" she asked her assistant. "No, ma'am. Systems are functioning normally," the assistant replied. "The human students appear to be moving at approximately 25 kilometers per hour. "That can't be right," Safety Director Yexnara said. "No biological organism can maintain that speed during emergency evacuation." On her screens, she watched the human dots racing through the station corridors while other student groups moved at the standard emergency pace. The humans were covering distance so rapidly that they would reach their shelter in less than 4 minutes. "Are they using emergency transportation?" she asked. "No, ma'am. Visual confirmation shows they are proceeding on foot." In the corridors, Jake, Lisa, and Ryan ran easily through the station. The low-gravity environment made running feel almost like floating, and the wide corridors provided plenty of space for safe movement. They passed group after group of alien students, all moving at careful evacuation pace. Each time they passed a group, the aliens' translators buzzed with alarmed chatter. "Why are they running? Running is dangerous during emergencies. They will injure themselves. Someone should stop them." But the humans were already far ahead, moving with the easy confidence of people who regularly ran for exercise. They reached Shelter 12 Alpha in 3 minutes and 47 seconds. The shelter was empty except for the automated systems. "I guess we're early," Lisa said, checking her watch. "Should we go back and help the others?" Ryan suggested. "Good idea," Jake agreed. They turned around and ran back into the corridors, where they began encountering alien students who were struggling with the emergency evacuation procedures. A group of Delphini students had become separated when one of their mobility tanks malfunctioned. The student was trapped in a corridor, unable to move without assistance. "Need help?" Lisa asked, arriving at a dead run. Without waiting for an answer, she simply picked up the mobility tank and started carrying it toward the shelter. The tank, which weighed nearly 200 pounds in standard gravity, felt light as a briefcase in the station's reduced gravitational field. "You cannot carry a mobility tank," Quenara protested through her translator. "It requires mechanical assistance." "It's not that heavy," Lisa replied, jogging easily while carrying the tank and its occupant. Meanwhile, Jake had encountered a group of Etherian students whose emergency transport containers were moving too slowly. He simply picked up the containers and started running toward the shelter, carrying 3 gaseous beings at once. "This is highly irregular," Mordun protested from inside his container. "Emergency evacuation procedures do not include being carried at high speed." "We'll get you there faster this way," Jake explained, not even breathing hard despite carrying several hundred pounds of equipment while running. Ryan found a group of Vorthak students who had become confused about their route to the shelter. Instead of arguing about directions, he simply guided them to follow him and led them on a direct path, moving at what he considered a reasonable walking pace, but what they found terrifyingly fast. Within 6 minutes of the drill beginning, all 3 humans had reached their assigned shelter. More importantly, they had assisted 17 alien students who had been struggling with various emergency evacuation problems. Safety Director Yex Nara stared at her displays in disbelief. Not only had the human students completed the evacuation in impossible time, but they had somehow helped nearly 24 other students reach safety faster than ever recorded. "This can't be accurate," she muttered, when the drill ended and students began filing back to their normal activities. Safety Director Yexnara called the human students to her office. "How did you complete the evacuation so quickly?" she asked. "We ran," Jake replied simply. "Running is not part of standard emergency evacuation protocol," she explained. "It's considered dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Lisa asked. "Rapid movement during emergencies leads to falls, collisions, and injuries. Standard procedure requires careful, measured progress to ensure safety." "But if it's a real emergency," Ryan pointed out, "wouldn't you want to get to safety as quickly as possible?" Safety Director Yexnara consulted her notes. "In a real atmospheric breach, rapid movement would cause increased oxygen consumption, leading to faster asphyxiation." "That's only a problem if you can't hold your breath," Lisa said. "Humans can hold their breath for several minutes if necessary." "Several minutes?" Safety Director Yexnara repeated weakly. "Sure," Jake added, "and we can run for hours without stopping if we need to. Emergency evacuation is basically just a short sprint." Safety Director Yexnara realized she was going to need to completely rewrite the station's emergency procedures. If humans could move at impossible speeds while carrying other students to safety, then perhaps they should be part of the emergency response team rather than people who needed to be evacuated. Would you be willing to assist with future emergency drills? She asked. Absolutely, Ryan said. Should we help train the other students to move faster? Instructor Veltar's office was filled with the soft, clicking sounds of her nervous agitation. The six-limbed arachnoid had requested this private meeting with the human students after spending 3 sleepless nights reviewing incident reports, safety violations, and impossible performance records. Jake, Lisa, and Ryan sat comfortably in chairs designed for much larger species, their feet dangling slightly off the ground. They looked relaxed and cheerful, completely unaware of the crisis they had created in the station's academic community. Students, Instructor Veltar began carefully, I need to discuss some concerns about your behavior during laboratory exercises and emergency procedures. Are we in trouble? Lisa asked, looking genuinely confused. Not trouble exactly, Instructor Veltar replied, consulting her extensive notes. But your actions have been highly unusual compared to standard safety protocols. She activated a holographic display showing video footage from the chemistry lab incident. The recording showed Lisa walking calmly through toxic acid fumes, while alien students evacuated in panic. This behavior suggests either complete disregard for safety procedures or... Instructor Veltar paused, struggling with the alternative explanation. Or what? Ryan asked. Or your species is far more resilient than our medical data indicates, she admitted. Jake, Lisa, and Ryan exchanged glances. What does your medical data say about humans? Jake asked. Instructor Veltar pulled up a comprehensive file on her display. According to Galactic Consortium records, humans are a fragile species, adapted to narrow environmental parameters, weak gravitational fields, low radiation tolerance, susceptible to atmospheric toxins, limited physical capabilities, and requiring extensive environmental controls for survival. That's not right, Lisa said, frowning at the display. Every piece of medical data we have supports these conclusions, Instructor Veltar insisted. Your own planetary survey reports describe Earth as having dangerously low gravity, minimal atmospheric protection from radiation, and unstable environmental conditions. Compared to what? Ryan asked. Compared to standard galactic norms, Instructor Veltar explained. Most inhabited worlds have gravitational fields between 2 and 3 times Earth's strength, dense atmospheres that provide natural radiation shielding and stable climatic conditions. So Earth is actually a low-gravity, high-radiation, unstable environment compared to most planets? Lisa asked. Precisely, Instructor Veltar confirmed. Which is why we were so concerned about your safety here on the station. Jake started laughing. You've got it backwards. Earth isn't a safe world that made us weak. Earth is a dangerous world that made us tough. Instructor Veltar's multiple eyes focused on him intently. Explain. Ryan pulled out his tablet and started showing pictures from Earth. Look at these images of human habitats. The first image showed people climbing a snow-covered mountain without any visible life support equipment. This is impossible, Instructor Veltar said. The atmospheric pressure at that altitude would be insufficient to support life. Humans climb mountains for fun, Ryan explained. Mount Everest is over 8,000 meters high. People climb it with just basic equipment and oxygen tanks. They voluntarily ascend to altitudes with lethal atmospheric conditions? Instructor Veltar asked weakly. Thousands of people every year, Jake confirmed, And that's just one mountain. People climb dangerous peaks all over the world, Lisa. Swiped to the next image showing surfers riding massive ocean waves. These humans are engaging with violent water formations, Instructor Veltar observed. Surely this is some form of emergency survival situation. Nope, that's surfing, Lisa said. It's a sport. People do it for fun. They deliberately place themselves in the path of destructive water forces for recreational purposes? Pretty much, Lisa nodded. Some people surf waves that are 20 meters high or bigger. Ryan showed the next image. People running a marathon in what looked like a desert environment. This appears to be a survival situation, Instructor Veltar said. Are these individuals fleeing from some disaster? That's the Boston Marathon, Ryan explained. It's a race. About 30,000 people run 42 kilometers just to see if they can do it faster than other people. 30,000 individuals voluntarily subject themselves to extreme physical stress? Instructor Veltar's voice was getting higher with each revelation. Every year, Jake confirmed. And that's just one race. There are hundreds of marathons around the world. Lisa pulled up a picture of her family having a barbecue in their backyard. This looks peaceful, Instructor Veltar said hopefully. That's my family cooking food outdoors, Lisa explained. We use fire to prepare meals. Open flame food preparation? Instructor Veltar asked. That seems unnecessarily dangerous. We've been cooking with fire for hundreds of thousands of years, Lisa said. Most human food is prepared using controlled combustion. Your species has been using uncontrolled chemical reactions for food preparation since before achieving civilization? Fire isn't uncontrolled if you know what you're doing, Jake said. People cook over open flames all the time. Camping, barbecues, restaurants. Fire is just another cooking tool. Ryan showed a picture of children playing soccer in a park. At least your juveniles are protected from dangerous activities, Instructor Veltar said with relief. Those kids are playing soccer, Ryan explained. It's a sport where you run around for 90 minutes trying to kick a ball into a goal while other people try to stop you. Children engage in competitive physical combat? It's not combat, it's just sport, Ryan laughed. Kids play soccer, basketball, American football, hockey, all kinds of games that involve running, jumping, and physical contact. You allow developing juveniles to participate in activities involving physical stress and potential injury? How else would they learn to be strong and coordinated? Lisa asked. Physical activity is essential for proper development. Instructor Veltar was rapidly taking notes, trying to reconcile everything she was learning with her understanding of biological safety requirements. Let me understand this correctly, she said slowly. Your species evolved on a world with dangerous radiation levels, low atmospheric protection, unstable climate conditions, and weak gravitational fields. Rather than developing protective technologies, you adapted by becoming physically resilient. Basically, yeah, Jake said. Earth is kind of trying to kill everything on it all the time, so life there had to get tough or die out. And this explains your apparent immunity to laboratory hazards, radiation exposure, gravitational stress, and emergency evacuation procedures? We're not immune, Lisa corrected. We can definitely be hurt or killed. It just takes a lot more than what you guys consider dangerous. For example, Instructor Veltar asked. Ryan thought for a moment. Well, the radiation levels in your physics lab were about the same as getting a dental x-ray. The acid in chemistry class was weaker than household cleaning products. The gravity training was actually more comfortable than home. And the emergency drill was just a light jog. A light jog, Instructor Veltar repeated faintly. Yeah, Jake said. We weren't even breathing hard. Instructor Veltar stared at her extensive notes and realized that everything the academic community thought they knew about humans was completely wrong. Your planet sounds like a death world, she said finally. Death world? Lisa asked. I guess it can be dangerous, but it's also beautiful. The mountains, oceans, forests, deserts, Earth has incredible diversity and amazing places to explore. You find dangerous environments beautiful? The most beautiful? Places are usually the most challenging, Ryan said. Mountain peaks, deep oceans, vast wilderness areas, those are the places that make you feel most alive. Because they could kill you? Because they test your limits, Jake explained. Humans like challenges. We get bored if things are too safe and easy. Instructor Veltar realized she was going to have to completely rewrite the station's safety protocols for human students. More importantly, she was going to have to inform the Galactic Consortium that their data on human physiology was not just wrong, it was backwards. Would you be willing to help me understand more about human capabilities? She asked. Sure, Lisa said cheerfully. What do you want to know? Everything, Instructor Veltar replied. I think we need to start from the beginning and learn what humans are actually capable of. As the meeting continued, Instructor Veltar filled page after page with notes about human physiology, psychology, and behavior patterns that defied every assumption the galactic community had made about the species. By the time the session ended, she realized that humans weren't the fragile creatures who needed protection from galactic civilization. They were the terrifyingly resilient species that galactic civilization needed protection from. But as she watched the three students leave her office, chatting cheerfully about their next classes, she also realized that humans were perhaps the most genuinely friendly and helpful species she had ever encountered, which somehow made them even more alarming. The emergency meeting of the Kepler Station Academic Council had been called at 0600 hours, an unprecedented time that reflected the unprecedented situation they faced. Director Thainix looked around the conference table at department heads, representing every major discipline on the station. Colleagues, he began, his four arms gesturing to the thick stack of reports before him. We need to discuss the human situation. Professor Nexroll from the physics department was the first to speak. My laboratory equipment is inadequate for human students. They consider our maximum radiation exposure levels to be routine medical procedures. The chemistry lab safety protocols are meaningless to them, added Dr. Colmex from the chemistry department. They handle substances that would require hazmat teams for other species. Commander Crixven nodded grimly. The human student completed gravitational conditioning exercises under forces that would crush our strongest mechanical assistance suits. And they redefined our understanding of emergency evacuation, Safety Director Yexnera added. They completed a 10-minute drill in under 4 minutes while carrying other students to safety. Director Thainix studied the reports with growing amazement. According to these documents, everything we believed about human physiology was incorrect. Not incorrect, Instructor Veltar corrected. Backwards. We assumed they were fragile. Because their planet has environmental conditions we consider dangerous. But those conditions didn't make them weak. They made them incredibly strong. So, what do we do? Asked Dr. Silvara from the medical department. Our entire safety infrastructure is designed to protect students from hazards that humans consider routine daily experiences. Before anyone could answer, the conference room's emergency communication system activated. All department heads to emergency stations, announced the automated system. Coolant leak detected in Engineering Section 5. Toxic atmospheric contamination. Spreading to adjacent areas. All students and non-essential personnel evacuate immediately. The department heads looked at each other with growing alarm. A coolant leak was one of the most dangerous emergencies possible on a space station. The toxic gases could kill most life forms within minutes, and the leak could potentially cause catastrophic system failures. Emergency response teams to Section 5, Director Thanex ordered through his communicator. "Sir," came the reply. "Emergency response teams cannot reach Section 5. The atmospheric contamination is too severe for standard protective equipment." Director Thanex was about to authorize the deployment of heavy hazmat robots when Instructor Veltar had a sudden thought. "Where are the human students?" she asked. "Safety." Director Yexanara checked her tracking system. "According to their schedule, they should be in Study Hall C, which is directly adjacent to Section 5. "Have they been evacuated?" "All students in the area have been ordered to evacuate, but—" Yexanara paused, checking her displays. "The human students appear to be moving toward Section 5, not away from it." Director Thanex activated the visual monitoring system and brought up cameras from the affected area. On the screens, they could see Jake, Lisa, and Ryan walking purposefully through corridors filled with toxic gas clouds that would be lethal to any other species. "What are they doing?" Professor Nexeral asked in horror. "They're not wearing any protective equipment," Dr. Colmex observed. "The atmospheric readings in that area would kill most life forms in 30 seconds, Safety Director Yexnara said weakly. On screen, they watched Jake reach the source of the leak, a massive coolant pipe that had ruptured and was spraying toxic chemicals throughout the corridor. Instead of fleeing, he was examining the damage and apparently making repairs. "Is he fixing the leak?" Commander Crixvan asked in disbelief. Lisa appeared to be reading technical manuals on her tablet while standing in an atmosphere that should have been instantly fatal. Ryan was working on a control panel, apparently rerouting coolant flow around the damaged section. "How are they surviving in that environment?" Dr. Silvara asked. "According to our previous conversations," Instructor Veltar said slowly, "humans are accustomed to much more dangerous atmospheric conditions than we.